That's not my outfit.
It's Death by Monsters!
Hello and welcome to Death by Monsters, a podcast all about monsters, mysteries, and the unknown. So, hi, you wonderful waggly wave of witches. How are all of you today?
I was going to go with wombats, but I appreciate it.
My name is Matthew Jude, and joining me today...
I was going to go with curious catch of koalas.
Ooh.
I'm sorry I took that away from you. You can pocket it and use it for a future episode. Well, my name is Paula Deming, and I hijacked the opening of this episode of Death by Monsters from one of my co-hosts, Matthew Jude.
Hello.
And he's thrilled. And who's my other host? Why, it's Nick Murphy.
Oh, I thought you were legitimately asking. I was like, wow, that hurts.
Not
Like,
only does my mother forget that you're a part of the podcast, but I do too. No.
Here's the thing, Paula's mom. I understand that you love me, but you love me less, and that's okay. But I'm glad that you love me.
She is very concerned. She texted me after a recent episode and was like, please let Nick know that I do like him. I do. And I was like, I know, he knows. It's just a joke now.
I know. It's an ongoing joke, just like Honda Accords.
That's right.
And Pigman. We haven't brought up Pigman enough in the last number of episodes.
We sure haven't.
Who put Pigman in the oak tree?
That's the story we will be investigating today. That's the mystery. That's the unknown. And I've written a wonderful script for this story.
Go for it.
Oh, no, I was hoping you would stop me. Matthew, you're supposed to stop me so I don't have to keep going, and then you could do your actual
You just
real
won't
script.
stop talking. Yes, my name's Matthew Jude, and boy howdy hot diggity goddamn have I got a mystery for you.
Yeah, good sentence. Put that on your neck, like tattoo it.
This week's show is all about the mystery of who put Bella down the Wych Elm. And you better believe I've got a few caveats before we start this sexy storm of sensory shit.
Ooh, so many good. You're really talented at alliteration, Matthew Jude.
You are, and God, dynamite legs.
The mystery of the woman known as Bella, whose body was found in the... And you've got lovely hair, Nick. I need to throw a compliment back at you.
I know.
Cool, I'll just be here listening, waiting for the mystery to unfold.
And Paula's here.
Cool.
The mystery of the woman known as Bella, whose body was found in the woods, could not be more local to me. This happened down the street from me in a little town called Hagley. And you better believe I'm going to spend a lot of this show just fucking tearing into my hometown and the cave trolls that live there.
Yep.
Oh.
Not a joke. We really do have people that used to live in caves, but they were quite nice. They're the rock houses over at Kimber. They're great, but also I hate my hometown and everything about it.
Oh.
Accurate.
Just like everyone does about their own hometown. Like, who really... Even the people who, like, never... Maybe especially the people who never left after high school.
I think especially, yeah.
No one likes their hometown. Let's be real.
At that point, you have to pretend you like your hometown.
It's like all the people who live in New York City and insist on New York City being a great city. I love New York and all that stuff. Like, no, you don't. New York treats you bad. It is not a fun, friendly place. You just have to pretend like you really love it so you don't collapse under the weight of how badly it treats you, just like an abusive relationship.
To be fair, you could make every one of those arguments for Los Angeles.
I was
Okay,
just
that's
about to
also
say
true.
this. It's like, you live in LA.
At least Los Angeles has sun.
And don't get me wrong, I love Los Angeles, but it is a meat grinder. We were all just complaining about how I will never have my own place in Los Angeles because it's too goddamn expensive.
Well, you know what they say about Los Angeles? It's the kindest city on earth.
Well, but we don't have a bunch of t-shirts that are like, I love LA. Like, no one sits here talking about how much they love living in LA. Everyone who's here is like, man, this city sucks. The traffic's the worst. The industry is bad. I can't get work. I get rejected all the time. At least I get screeners. You know, like, no one is like insisting on how much they love this city.
That was such an LA sentence. We still got screeners.
Now that I'm done spouting off about Los Angeles, how about your hometown, Matthew?
Firstly, I will say I love New York. I really do. It's just
It's
a great
good to
place.
visit.
But also, yes, it's terrible. I will say that while I always do a wide breadth of research for these episodes, I did lean more heavy into one documentary than I would normally do for this particular show, which was Who Put Bella in the Wych Elm, The Untold Secrets by Jane Harris, which is on Amazon Prime. So if you are fascinated by this story, then I would be remiss if I didn't say that you should go and find out more.
Well, you could watch it. Then you and I can talk about it, and we can express our feelings about whether or not it was of good filmmaking quality. Hey, if you're interested in the documentaries that Matthew forces Nick and I to watch, I'm going to start posting links to them on our Patreon page. That's right. We have a Patreon. You might already know that. It is patreon.com/deathbymonsters. Now, I want to be clear. These links to our documentaries will be available for everyone. You do not need to be a patron. They're just going to live on the page because it's an easy way to post them.
And while you're there, you might as well click a button that says, tier 1 or something.
Yeah, just help us fundraise so we can afford to do a road trip up to the Winchester Mystery House and other things.
And at this point, I'm going to risk it by saying I think we may have reached at least our first goal.
We have reached our first goal.
I hope so.
Now.
Let's be optimistic. We've reached our first goal. Thank you so much.
So thank you very much for anyone who has donated to our Patreon. And that will mean that me and Michael Lee Murphy, or as I like to call him, Michael the lying son of a gun Murphy, the man who controls the waves, will be doing a extra monthly show. So more information about that will be coming up soon.
Yeah.
But it's more stuff for people, so hopefully that's a good thing. So the second caveat I have, an important thing I want to mention before we start this particular episode, aside from my personal vendetta against the West Midlands, may God have mercy on the McDonald's where its soul used to be, is that no matter what conclusions we come to, if any, let's be honest, the only inescapable fact is that whoever Bella was, she was brutally murdered in the prime of her life. And while it's easy to speculate that maybe it was the right thing to happen or that she knew what she was getting into in a dangerous line of work or anything like that, the case is unsolved. So yes, we will be making some jokes as this is a comedy podcast.
Thank you for referring to 35 as the prime of her life. I personally appreciate that for no particular reason at all.
That is the prime of your life.
But someone very much did die, and I don't want to gloss over that fact. And with that, on with the irreverent banter.
On with it. Finally. Boy, tell that lady on your podcast to stop talking so much and taking everything off topic. Ugh.
I believe I was considered the insufferable one, so.
Only according to Karen, my mother.
I really like your podcast, but a woman?
Oh, no, I was grading. That's what it was. Sorry.
Oh, you're right. And that had nothing to do with my mother.
And while this story doesn't start in 1943, actually I'll go as far as saying that the story had finished by 1943.
Yeah, pretty much.
But what was it? It was the start of a mystery.
Ooh.
Oh, were we supposed to? I wasn't sure if that was
Sorry,
the
sorry.
time we were gonna.
I was like, the Wych Elm?
Nope, ruined it. It's April 1943 in Hagley in the West Midlands. And as a good reference as to what Hagley would have been like in 1940s, I suggest going there now.
That sounds about right.
I mean, I could not be more serious. It's very little has changed. As far as I'm concerned, Hagley, because this is my home story. So I know all of these places.
This is your home strange.
And this
Well,
story
yeah.
kind of means something to me because it's something I've grown up around. Hagley has always been a bit posh, as far as everyone around here is concerned. It's surrounded by miles of beautiful British rolling hills, the type that Constable would paint. It's the landscape that inspired C.S. Lewis. It's the landscape that inspired Tolkien. It's subjectively lovely, and I hate it.
But do you hate it because it's lovely?
I hate it because I can't see the beauty. I just hate it so much. I hate the West Midlands.
It's hard to appreciate. You don't appreciate your hometown until you leave it.
I've left before. It was the coming back that hurt the most.
See, I feel like that's mostly why you hate it. Which is totally fair, to be completely honest.
The official timeline is that on April 18th, 4 young lads, Robert Hart, Thomas Willett, Bob Farmer and Fred Payne, all good, wholesome old man names at this point, but they were 15 at the time.
It's true.
They're all doing a bit of sneaky poaching and trapping in the Hagley Wood. And while that's all well and good, not to mention understandable. This is peak World War II with tremendous strain on the communities from strict rationing, not to mention the fact that the industrial West Midlands, which is most of the West Midlands, was getting the absolute shit bombed out of it. So they all go about their bit of poaching, avoiding Lord Cobham, the owner of the land, where they were very much trespassing on. And I did a bit of research into the family history of Lord Cobham and the Littletons, who own the land. And everyone around here has heard of the Littletons, right? It's just one of those things. But the current owner of the house basically inherited a title, I think, and a house that is just super expensive and falling down. You know what I mean?
It's like the landed gentry.
They kind of inherit a big burden.
Yeah, right?
Because they've got to keep these registered buildings in good shape, and they are just rotting because they're so expensive.
I hadn't thought about that, but that's a good point.
But I also hate them, as is my God-given right as a working-class commoner.
Damn right.
So while the boys are doing their little latchkey kid thing, stealing knickers off washing lines and enjoying malnutrition, little Bob Farmer decides to get a good look at one particularly haunted-looking wych elm tree. And the only way to describe this tree is, the second I saw it, is that it looks like a more sinister version of the tree from Fern Gully.
Ooh, I was thinking it kind of looks a little bit like the Whomping Willow.
That's what I was thinking. I was more Whomping Willowy.
What's the Whomping Willow from?
It's the big tree from Harry Potter.
Cool.
It whomps.
Whomp is a great swear word, which I use to this day. So do the people at Loading Ready Run. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. We get it. You love them. You love them more than you love us. Fine.
I neither confirm nor deny. While Bob Farmer is investigating the tree for birds' nests, he looks down through the hollow of the tree trunks and sees an undeniable thing, the thing that probably ruined his childhood, and that's a human skull.
Almost assuredly ruined his childhood.
Gross.
And this wasn't a bleached white human skull. This still had the decomposing remnants of matted hair and skin on it.
Ugh, that's the worst.
So gross.
This is like a Stand By Me moment, I feel. Like they've just,
Oh, yeah.
you know, this is a bad time, right?
Yeah, this is not what I wanted to happen today.
I mean, finding a dead body.
I never want that. That's horrific.
I don't want it. No, I don't want to either, if I'm perfectly honest. I saw a dead bear once, and that was one of the most disturbing things that's ever happened.
I saw a dead seal on a
no.
beach after in Malibu it was like a year ago now, after all the fires that happened up there, and it was incredibly upsetting.
Yeah, that checks out.
I once was camping. I cycled from a place near me. I cycled to Aberystwyth, which is on the Welsh coast. But whilst we're on this trip, we were camping in this farmer's field, and we saw a dead sheep, like in a little brook. And for some reason, I threw a brick at it, and I'll be honest with you, that brick did not stop when it hit skin. It went most of the way through that tree.
Ew.
So the problem is
Matthew.
that they didn't want to get in trouble for being on Lord Cobham's land, especially as the reason for them being there was illegal poaching. So the boys decided to leave the school and return home instead with a secret. A secret that lasted about 20 minutes.
About to say.
Yeah, because one of them snitched.
One of them snitched. We've got a narc. You know what we do to narcs.
We give them stitches. They don't have cuts. We just give them the stitches anywhere we want.
Stitch him up good. The youngest of the boys, feeling he needed to maybe get a little of that classic "we found the dead body" secret off his chest, tells his father, who then in turn tells the Worcester police force, who, in something that will happen more than once in this story, and I know it's wartime, but still, they wait until the next day to go out and investigate.
Just don't.
The investigation that follows, to give some credence to the police force, was as thorough as a police investigation can be in 1943, but what I have to assume was excuse the pun, a skeletal police force. There was just no other way of wording that. So, and this isn't just a regular police force. This is the police force of people who aren't at war and have shell shock and PTSD, or are too old to have shell shock and PTSD, meaning they probably got shell shock and PTSD from World War One.
Yeah, pretty much.
It was not a good time to be alive.
Not really, no.
It was also an incredibly easy time to die.
Yep.
They do find the almost complete skeletal remains of a victim in the tree, as well as the remains of a severed hand in the nearby undergrowth. And on top of that, they find some of the victim's clothing fragments, enough to solve any case you would think, no, This is a mystery.
That's the whole point. We're like, solved, done. Bye, everybody.
That's it. Thanks for listening to Death by Monsters.
Bye.
This is where the story ends, but it's where the mystery begins.
Also ends.
Oh, yeah, also ends.
Because it was instantly solved.
Because of the bit that we were doing that I messed up. Oh,
Yes, and Paul.
Oh, God.
I'm so sorry. Oh, fuck. This is 2 strikes, you guys.
And a half. One more part of the investigation, a part that came under some scrutiny later on, was the fact that, being that they were low on manpower for the search of the Hagley Woods, the police just rocked up at the local schools and offered the boys there if they wanted to go out to the woods and have a look for bones. My answer, yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's go. Can I use my own shovel?
I guess, like, in this time, you don't need to be too worried about sheltering children from the atrocities of life.
That's true.
Because, like, it's World War II and, like, they're getting bombed in, blitzes all the time. So, like, they already are well acquainted with the atrocities of life. So might as well make it a scavenger hunt game.
Might as well.
This is no one's first soiree into the realm of death. I feel everyone has probably had to deal with it at some point during this
Yeah.
era.
Yeah, 100%.
And they don't have to worry about forensic evidence and all that kind of stuff, because what they did essentially was tramp through the woods and destroy the crime scene completely. But this is a crime scene that was already fairly...
It was always pretty old.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the first DNA test doesn't happen for another 45 years or something like that.
Yeah,
So
it's like, what are they going to do?
exactly. They paid the boys 6 pence each and half a crown if you could find a bone.
This is like when I was a kid and my friend's dad would offer us, they had this giant backyard with a bunch of pine trees. And so he would offer to let us go out in the yard and pick up pine cones to bring in for their fireplace. And he would pay a penny a cone.
Yeah.
And this is a lot like that.
Yeah. And honestly, like, real talk, if I was a kid and someone was like, hey, you want to go in the woods, try and find some bones? Like, especially if there were cops, like...
Yeah, you'd be like,
I would have done it.
Yeah, I would have too.
I would have found bones and then been traumatized, but like in the moment, I totally would have done it. Like 100% I would have done it.
I'd look at that police officer and I'd say it. And he'd say what? I'd say, you know what? And he'd say, fine, you're a deputy sheriff.
I would be like, sir, I will pay you to let me go find bones.
Also, if I get paid an extra half a crown, if I find a bone, you better believe I'm taking a bone in with me.
Yeah, right? I'm
So,
like,
yeah,
you
better
didn't
believe-
specify what kind of a bone. Yes, it's a chicken bone left over from my lunch.
I'm just 100 of doing that every single time. And by the way, half a crown was enough to buy you so many sweets that you'd be incredibly ill for a very long time.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Professor James Webster, the head of the Home Office Forensic Laboratory, was the person in charge of the examination. And a few days later, on the 23rd, his report claimed that the woman seemed to be about 35 years old, 5 foot tall, and the defining feature was an irregularity in her front teeth. But again, this is set in the West Midlands. So that could be just about anybody.
That was one thing that they focused on quite a bit was the teeth. And I'm like, did people have great, like, dental work back then? Like,
I mean, like, no offense, but British people do have a reputation for not having great teeth. That comes from somewhere, right?
It's the burden, Paula, of being an island nation. 18 months before the body was found was the estimated time of death. But we don't know that for sure. So with all these details, you think that with someone would be missing a loved one. But this, again, is during World War II. Everyone was missing someone. So I have to assume it was kind of hard to care.
yeah. Yeah, I bet.
Oh, that's a good point.
It's like, yeah, we're all missing someone. Everyone's missing someone. That whole town over there died last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the kind of... I mean, that didn't happen so much as it did in World War One, where in Britain, at least, the conscription was you went as a town, like for camaraderie and brotherhood and that kind of stuff. But if your regiment was the one that went out and got mowed down by the barrage of these newfangled machine guns, it's like, well, everybody in that Staffordshire town, everyone's dead.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. I hadn't thought about it like that before. That's
Every male between
Really
18
awful.
and 26 is gone.
That could happen.
Yeah.
Everyone could die. You just see a list, and it's every single list is
Yeah.
Smith. They're all anyway. That's not what we're talking about. But it is a terrible time to be alive.
yeah.
Totally. And it's like, you make a good point. It's like, it probably was hard for them to really care about tracking down this person. They're like, yeah, everyone has someone who's died, so deal with it.
Exactly.
Which sucks, but like, that's the reality of it, you know?
Or being like, yeah, I am missing a loved one, but who knows if it's this person or if it's because of, something else that happened. Like we all are. Yeah.
Exactly. That's because the movement of people around the country at this time was also massive. People were evacuated out of the West Midlands. They went to the countryside to avoid being blitzed into a smouldering crater during breakfast.
Yeah.
And while Hagley is technically the countryside, very close by, we've got Wolverhampton, Coventry, which was bombed out of existence. They had to rebuild it from scratch pretty much. And you've got Birmingham and the entire West Midlands and the Black Country. It's a manufacturing hub. That's where they made munitions and stuff. It was a prime target.
Yeah.
But that didn't mean they didn't have to identify this body. The police even managed to get her dental records published in the British Dental Journal in case any dentist with an eidetic memory could remember her teeth for some not at all creepy reason.
Oh, yeah.
Her clothes were recreated from the fragments found, and it's reported that the labels had all been missing or removed. But with all their efforts, no one came forward.
Shocker.
It's not,
I'm just saying, again, the kind of talking, it's like not like anyone's had anything else to do,
Yeah.
during this time. It's like, it sucks for this woman, but it's just like,
yeah.
I get like no one has spare time to be like, hey man, these teeth look familiar. It's like I don't know. It's a very product of its time, but it just sucks. But it's like I get why it seems like there was a lot of like not action on this one.
Well, I feel like it could have easily, though, swung the other way, where it's like, oh, I hate everything that's actually happening. Let me throw myself into focusing
distraction.
on this story or this mystery.
I get that. That's
like
a good point.
it could have gone the other way, and it didn't. But I could have also understand it if that had been the response. Everyone just like getting really obsessed about it because they needed anything, to distract themselves.
That's fair. That's totally fair.
Yeah, I actually really love that idea that, it's like, hey, we could all do with a win right now.
Yeah, let's try and get justice for whoever this, Bella, as she is known now.
So it's not until 1944 that things take the next turn to full-blown Mystery Town.
Woo woo! That's the train that's taking us there because, Britain's full of trains.
It is.
Oh no, the train broke down and now we're all going to have to wait 3 hours.
Yep.
That's a good, timely, on-topic joke, even though I've never ridden a train in Britain.
That's also soon to change, but yes, that is something that happens.
Yeah. I actually have ridden a train in Britain, so I feel like I'm in the know.
But in 1944, this is when the messages start appearing.
The messages from beyond the grave?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
As a matter of fact, nope.
I mean, maybe. Who knows? There are a series of graffiti messages written up in prime locations, eventually all across the area, in big white letters. The first one asking, who put Lubella down the Wych Elm? Some included extra details such as address was opposite Rose and Crown, Hasbury, Hagley Wood, Lubella. But most were variations on the classic and agreed upon who put Bella down the Wych Elm. And to say, this still happens now. And it's why I've always known about this case. I grew up seeing these messages around town.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
There was one on the Stourbridge Viaduct for a while. That means nothing to almost anyone, but I distinctly remember it.
But it sounds very British.
It does.
Like if you said that and I had no context of where it might be from, I'd be like, that is for sure in Britain. There's no way that's in freaking Detroit.
The Stourbridge Viaduct. A viaduct, it could be in imperialistic Rome, but Stourbridge probably not.
Stourbridge, Iowa.
Oh, that would be the most depressing place on earth. Well, the most iconic of these is at the Witchbury Obelisk, which is a real thing that sounds really weird now I've written it down, but there is an obelisk on a hill in Witchbury, and it says, who put Bella down the Wych Elm?
Why is there an obelisk there?
I just don't know. I think it's probably, I'm going to say, romanticized colonialism.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who think that they can answer that question. So, let's get into some theories.
Yeah.
And I already know some little bits about how you both feel about this, and I'm wondering how long it'll take for you to become enraged.
Depends on what theory you start with.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The first, and I can't work out if it's the most far out or the most realistic theory, and that's because it's some good old-fashioned witchcraft.
Yeah, witches,
This one's dumb.
paganism, the hand of glory.
Those damn pagans and their freaking hinges. Oh, gosh.
Their ley lines.
I'm definitely bringing up ley lines. That's happening.
Good, because honestly, it was referenced in the documentary we watched, and I was like, I don't really know what this is, and they didn't explain it. So I hope you explain what a ley line is.
I will probably try. I will also say now that I'm against any form of satanic panic. Let them play D&D.
Yes.
They're not going to summon a devil.
In fact, they're trying to vanquish it.
That's the whole point of D&D. So, yes, satanic panic and all that. Listen, if they like Marilyn Manson, it's fine. It doesn't mean they're evil. This theory originally comes from Professor Margaret Murray from University College London and derives from one of the main idiosyncrasies of the case, and that's that one of the victims' hands was missing. So, Margaret Murray was an anthropologist and archaeologist, but she was a full-blown expert on folklore and witchcraft, and someone that argued that the overarching witchery was part of a larger, more organised religion called the Dianic cult. It's a super interesting thing in theory, but we absolutely do not have time for. But she's an interesting character. She's the kind of person who, at the turn of the century, would go to Egypt and dig up a tomb.
Cool.
It does sound fun.
Also, she lived to be 100.
Witchcraft.
Witchcraft!
Yep, she made a pact with the devil. She got to live to be 100.
I believe.
Wasn't actually the best, like, trade-off because, you know, like Alzheimer's and stuff, but
You know, depends.
Quality of life goes into those agreements, and it's the kind of thing the devil would play a pesky little trick with you.
Yeah, totally.
You can live to be 1,000, but you'll be completely bedridden.
Exactly.
You like donuts, do you? Well, you can eat all the donuts. I think I referenced that in a recent episode.
oh man, I would eat some donuts right now. Sorry, continue.
Oh, smash. Can we talk about donuts real quick? Hold on, screw this episode. Let's talk about donuts real quick. Donuts do not need to be all sorts of crazy. I do not need a donut that's filled with all this stuff. It's got Captain Crunch on top, a slice of cheese pizza, all this weird crap that's all over them. It's got like, oh, this one's infused with bacon.
I
like,
was literally just about to say, except for those maple ones with bacon on top. Those are good.
No, afraid not. Donuts do not need to be fancy. They're donuts. They're great at 7-Eleven. They're great at a really nice donut place. They do not need to be fancy. Stop this fancy donut crap.
If you buy them at 7, they're not great at 11. Eat them straight away. That's one thing I would say about a
That's
donut.
a very good advice.
Yeah, I maintain donuts are always great.
Whack them in the microwave for a second, they go all
Yes, I was going to say
goop-
reheat them.
Yeah.
They'll get a little better.
A donut that is more than like 75 cents should be a federal crime. I am sorry. It is ridiculous. Like, it's like $5 for a donut. I'm like, I will strike you. What are you talking about?
Do you know who's actually sorry? Bella, because she's dead and she can't eat donuts anymore.
It's true, but she'd agree with me.
I like to think that she would. The theory really comes... So I think I was midway through the sentence that the theory really comes from the fact that one of the hands was missing
Sorry.
when the body was found. And she believed this was a surefire sign of black magic. Specifically, a black magic execution. The hand, according to Murray, was a hand of glory. A hand cut...
Yeah, like I said. Matthew just silently is annoyed at me for interrupting. That's okay, you can continue.
A hand cut from the body of an executed criminal. The hand was meant to have powerful magic, like a turn 8 Ulamog for all our Magic the Gathering friends.
Cool.
Look, if you're casting your turn 8 Ulamog, you got that game on lockdown.
I mean, you haven't been mana screwed at that point, that's for sure.
A flood is worse than a drought. That's what they say.
You know, it can be very annoying. You're like, great, another island, but I have no creatures to play, so what good does it do me?
Well, that's why you want Ulamog. You're going to have colorless...
Okay. Maximum $1 for a donut. I mean, maximum.
I'm just saying Ulamog's colorless. It's fine. So, a hand of glory, well, yes, it sounds cool, and it's meant to be able to make the owner invisible, open any locked door, or put a whole house of people to sleep.
Wow.
Also, if it's made from the fat of the dead man itself, apparently it would burn forever, which is economical.
That is nice.
That's gross.
And while, as artifacts at least, they do exist, as well as the fact that witchcraft in the West Midlands really did 100% happen, there is undoubtedly active witchery going on in the area. There's two things about it that I have to think about. One is that I'm not sure which would come first, Bella and the Wych Elm prompting the practice of witchcraft in the specific woods, or the witchcraft first resulting in a murder. And just because you see lights in the woods near Kent Hills, it doesn't mean it's witchcraft. It's probably, and I mean this with as much sincerity as I can muster, it's probably just teenagers banging.
It's probably just aliens. Oh, okay.
I mean, it could be aliens banging.
Could be aliens banging.
I just want to put out there, someone is banging in those woods.
Or it could be witches banging.
I mean, let's face
Because,
it.
Again, someone is banging.
If we learned nothing from our Christmas special,
We learned very little.
we did know that pagans love to party.
That's true.
You gotta know they're banging.
Yeah. Multiple people all at once.
Sign me up. But there are a few problems with Hands of Glory specifically, and that's that classically they're male hands. And as far as witchcraft, at least the type that would be revered and practiced in the forest, the Hands of Glory are most likely more akin to the handshakes of secret societies at the time. And finally, on the hand, sometimes when something dies in the woods, animals just kind of scavenge that. And
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. And maybe they just take a bit and they kind of scatter it across, away from
Maybe
the
they
tree.
bury it for later.
And that all just kind of makes a bit more sense than blaming pagans or witches or devil worship.
Yeah.
But it's a lot less fun.
It is a lot less fun, let's face it. The other witchcraft connections are tenuous at best, and it's that the name Bella and the fact that Belladonna or Deadly Nightshade, and that's a connection with witchcraft for some reason, which, and I have to say this, as much as you should be careful when eating mushrooms, if you eat Deadly Nightshade, it will straight up murder you. So don't do that.
It's true.
Yeah, don't eat that. Don't be poisoned.
It's called Deadly Nightshade.
Yeah, that name's not just for fun.
That's not just to be cute. It'll kill you.
It's not a Pokemon,
Yeah. Although Nightshade is a Pokemon move.
Deadly Nightshade, I choose you. Deadly.
Oh, that's kind of cute. Also, near me, there's a connection that they think that Bella might be, because at every wooded area around me for 20 miles is called the Bluebell Woods.
That sounds lovely. Is it because there are bluebells everywhere?
Yes.
Aw.
But it doesn't matter which wood you go to. You might say, oh, I'll meet you at the Bluebell Wood. That's not specific enough. Because every wood is the bluebell. There's also the chestnut wood near me, but that's still really good for bluebells too.
Wow, this sounds like a place that adorable animals are living and have their own humanized economy going. It's basically a red wall. The bluebell wood, the chestnut wood.
Well, I'll say this actually. The bluebells might be out exactly at the time that you guys are visiting. So we could go for a walk around.
That would not be bad.
But if you don't visit, I'll tell you what it looks like. It looks as though nature drank a bottle of blue curacao, then threw up all over it.
Oh, that sounds great.
These things happen.
Which I think is a reference to Deck the Halls holiday special.
Hey, by the way, I have another podcast. It's a fiction podcast called Deck the Halls with Matrimony. Yes, it is a holiday rom-com. If you love a Hallmark Channel Christmas movie, look, it's after Christmas, so this isn't really great timing for this, but go check it out. Whatever.
That's the holiday special, so it's not at Christmas. It's ever so good.
That's true.
The one that has the blue curacao is a summer special, so yeah, have at it.
I listened to it about 20 times, but
I bet.
It's because Matthew edited it.
I was helping in a very small way, but it did help at all.
No, it was a massive amount of work.
So basically, as far as witchcraft goes, I do not buy it in the slightest. I feel like it's just scapegoat.
Here's the thing. Neither does this documentary.
Yeah, the documentary we watched also apparently acted like they bought it, and then they were like, "Ha, you idiots! You thought that we thought it was witchcraft, dum-dums."
This is stupid, and so are you. Like, cool.
But it's just super annoying that witchcraft always gets brought up. It's like, we need a scapegoat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been doing it for thousands of years. We need a scapegoat. Someone blame the pagans.
Yeah, straight up.
They're not like us. Mm-hmm. And they're trees, dressed in bark, having fun. I've been on my knees all morning in the church.
No, I totally agree. It's like one of those things that's just like, but it's like every other thing. We talked about this in the Amelia Earhart episode a little bit, and we brought it up very briefly, and most of you brought it up to say that we're not going to talk about this. Is like, but what if it was aliens? And it's like aliens always get brought up, and it's like, Jesus, bring up something fun like lizard demons at least if you're going to bring something up the entire time. So yeah, it's like witchcraft. It's like, no, this is ridiculous. Just Oh God.
As much as this is a paranormal podcast, you know, as well as being a mystery podcast and all that kind of stuff.
And an unknown podcast. We're trying to get more well known though. So share us on Reddit or whatever.
Share us with a friend. It just doesn't. I mean, there's enough mystery here to go around, so you don't have to add these.
Yeah, 100%.
I agree. Like, the circumstances of this skeleton being found is mystery enough. You don't have to suddenly be like paranormal stuff. It's kind of like we talked about with Bigfoot too. It's like it doesn't have to be paranormal.
Well, it's not paranormal because it's real.
It's weird enough on its own.
It's natural history and biology. Basically.
Well, it's not paranormal because it's bears, but that's cool.
You did say it was biological, and bears are biological because they're bears.
Now this might shock you, and I've never actually brought this up on the show, and I feel like this is the right time, and it's one of those things that I believe that I don't know how it will be received by other people because I get because I do believe in Bigfoot, right? But I don't believe in bears.
I knew something was coming. I just didn't know what.
The next theory is when it all starts to get even more mysterious, and that's espionage. Because there's a few things in most stories that you can't avoid, and one of them is Nazis. So there's a lot of Nazi talk coming up. Get excited.
Whoo, boy. That's me getting excited.
How did I open this show? What was the phrase I used? Boy howdy, hot diggity goddamn.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, espionage, classically mysterious line of work, and absolutely something that was going on in the area at the time. As I said earlier, the West Midlands has always been a hub of industry. That's why it's so unbearably terrible here. But during the war, this was all manufacturing that was keeping the war effort going abroad. So when a letter, 10 years after the discovery, comes into the Express and Star, a newspaper I've been on the front cover of 6 times, a new theory starts.
Really? For what?
Well, the thing is, right, the school I went to, which was called Bellevue Primary, they wanted to get in the paper a lot, so they thought, what's the best way to get in the paper?
I know, twins.
Twins, exactly.
Really?
Let's put them in frog costumes and put them in a pond.
Is this real? Wait.
I will find a picture of me and my brother on the front page of the Express and Star and put it on our Instagram.
Is it straight up? They were just like, let's just do a modeling opportunity.
I think we were just cute.
Oh, my Lord.
I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Let's talk about Bella.
So I know firsthand about the bastards in the media.
This is why I hate the West Midlands so much.
Are you a celebrity there when we walk around? We're going to go into a pub and people are going to be like, Frog Boy.
If only I could have that level of notoriety, Paula.
Oh, gosh, I'm crying.
This letter comes in to Wilfred Jones. The letter reads, finish your articles on the Wych Elm crimes, by all means, as they are interesting to your readers. But you will never solve this mystery. The person who could give the answer is now beyond the jurisdiction of earthly courts. The affair is closed and involves no witch, black magic, or moonlight rites. Signed, Anna of Claverley.
Now, little known fact, actually, that the person who wrote this letter was the first example of what we would later know as an internet troll. Who were like, oh, you've been making content about a thing? Well, let me send you an unsolicited comment about how much I think you're stupid and wrong and how much I know about a thing.
This guy became Big Daddy John 69.
But you can always rate and review us on iTunes. 5 stars, please. I mean, otherwise, just
don't do it.
Don't, please. I mean, I'll be honest. I work so hard on this.
So true.
So Wilfred meets with Anna, real name Uma Mossap, who tells a tale that I found at least 2 very different versions of. So I'll go through them both. The first is that her ex-husband, Jack Mossap, had confessed to family members that he and a Dutchman named Van Rout had indeed put Bella down the Wych Elm. But she was alive at the time.
Oh my gosh. Like they put a live person in a tree and then she just died in there?
You're not going to enjoy this story. It's real dumb. Apparently, according to this series of events, they had gone to the Littleton Arms, which, as an aside, is a pub that I kind of hate because it's too pretentious and it's also about £6 for a pint. Not important.
I mean, we're totally going there, though.
I'd rather not, but we can do.
We'll take a picture in front of it. Hey, follow us on Instagram. We're going to take a picture in front of this place when we're all together in Stourbridge.
I think we should go to the Witchbury Hill obelisk.
For sure.
They'd gone to the Littleton Arms, Jack, Van Rout and a woman. As they drove home, the woman passed out drunk, and to teach her a lesson, they left her in a tree.
What the fuck?
So that when she woke up, she would see the error of her ways.
Jesus.
Well, who taught them a lesson? Why are they not being held responsible for their behavior? I hate them.
The lesson that Jack Mossap learned was unrelenting guilt.
Well, good.
More on that as we go into version 2.
What a thing. Let's just stick this lady in a tree and leave her.
This'll be good for a right laugh.
She should be an arborist. I don't understand the logic of any of this.
A drunk woman? Not in this world.
A woman who agreed to drink the beverages we purchased for her.
How dare her?
It's not great, is it? But
No.
version 2 has a bit more Nazis going on, so let's get into
good.
it.
There you go.
They're easy to hate.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
It's so easy. So version 2, on the other hand, we have Nazi spies. So I like this one way more. Jack is described as having come into some money. He'd been working in the local munitions factory during the war. This is when he met the mysterious Van Rout. Later, Jack would admit to Uma that Van Rout was in fact a Nazi agent, and that the money had come from selling secrets to him that were then passed on to another agent, that being Bella. The story goes on the same way, that they'd met at the Littleton Arms, Jack, Van Rout and Van Rout's girlfriend, and after the meeting, Jack comes home. He's notably in shock and asks Uma for a drink. He explains that he's been out with Van Rout and the Dutch piece, meaning Rout's girlfriend.
Cool.
Now let me tell you something about the undeniable allure of Dutch women. No, sorry. The insinuation is that the Dutch woman was Bella, and she was either the female Nazi agent posing as Van Rout's girlfriend, she could have been just Van Rout's girlfriend, or she could have been someone else entirely. But whichever is the case, she is Bella, as far as the events of that evening are concerned. Van Rout makes Jack drive up to the Clent Hills, where Van Rout strangles her, and then together they put her down the Wych Elm. What's also true is that Jack Mossop ends up in a psychiatric facility in Staffordshire after having a nervous breakdown, including visions, allegedly, of a skull in a tree. And it's there that he takes an overdose, or perhaps he too is murdered.
I mean, probably not. He probably just overdosed on the meds that they were giving him at the asylum.
Almost every medication at that time had cocaine in it. So, probably.
Yeah, I mean, it's for sure that this guy actually had a hand in some sort of crime, or is there a theory that he was wrong or making it up or having a break with reality when he confessed this stuff? Like, I mean, he's a real person who really had a breakdown and really said that crimes happened.
That's totally true. But this whole story comes from Uma Mossap.
Oh, maybe he had a breakdown and she was like, well, this is embarrassing. Let me come up with some crazy story about why this happened.
Let me come up with a crazy story.
Everyone will believe this part.
Well, the fact is that whichever version of events this is, it still leaves us not necessarily knowing who is who. We don't know if Bella was, in fact, a second agent, a Nazi spy, to put it sexily. And we don't know, or it could have just been Van Rout's girlfriend, or Van Rout's girlfriend, or she could have been posing as Van Rout's girlfriend as a way to become a spy, or to have a cover story as a spy. But what's more important is this all comes in much later on, and we don't know if any of it's true, other than the fact that Jack Mossap ended up in a psychiatric hospital where he takes an overdose.
Yeah.
But there is one bit of extra information about this, which is the only other bit of information that might go some way to corroborating this story, and that's that a home guardsman had stopped a car on the way to the Clent Hills. The man had handed him RAF paperwork, and so he let them on their way. Although the guardsman noted that there was strange that there was a woman who was covered up in the back of the car, not showing her face.
It's so weird to me that he wouldn't, I feel like you have one job. That's all.
Well, the link here is that Jack Mossop was not in the RAF, but he was known to casually wear an RAF uniform.
I mean, isn't that illegal, like impersonating an officer kind of a situation?
Just super illegal, especially during wartime, I have to assume.
Yeah, I can only assume.
And in America, at least, I know it's stolen valor is the phrase for us, but I don't know what we call it here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure as well if this is meant to have happened on the night of the murder, or it was just something that happened as well as that there was a woman hiding her face with an RAF officer. But let me tell you something about a woman and an RAF officer driving up to the Clent Hills. They're probably going up there to bang.
They're probably going up there to bang, let's be honest.
Like a prostitute, maybe, who didn't want her face shown?
Or just anyone whose husband is off at war, who meets a lovely RAF officer. I mean, there's just...
Okay, I'm sorry for assuming that she was a prostitute. You're right. Could have been love.
It could have been love. I mean, if it wasn't an RAF officer, it could have been one of those pesky Yanks that impregnated all the women of Britain during the Second World War.
Yeah, I started watching a TV show about that once, and then I was like, this is too depressing, and I stopped watching
There's a lot of sad stories going on.
There's a couple. It was, as we said, this was a horrible time to be alive.
Let's just cement that in right now. Terrible time to be alive. One other thing that does reinforce this theory that Jack Mossop could have been involved is only that the fact that the body ended up in such a perfect hiding place. And I don't want to give out too many crime tips, but if you're going to get rid of a body in 1941, just bury it.
Yeah, there's no forensics.
really.
Like,
It's 1941.
Chuck it in the river. I don't know.
Chuck it in the river. I mean, how hard?
yeah.
You don't trawl through the woods, though, looking for a tree to hide a body in. It just stands to reason that fact that the body was hidden in a tree is the perfect hiding place. It just means that either it was very predetermined or Jack knew about the tree. But it could have just been by chance. Again, if you're premeditating a murder, you could also just go and dig a big hole somewhere beforehand.
But if you're not premeditating, if it just happened in the heat of the moment, and then you're panicked, and then you go, oh, that tree. I know a tree. We could put this in, because your brain isn't working right, and you just think of the first thing you think of.
Exactly. I'm just not sure that this is used as evidence that because it was buried, because the body was put in this particular tree, it must have been premeditated, or it must have been something more sinister.
I see what you're saying.
But I'm not convinced that is evidence one way or the other, really. Although apparently there aren't that many places to hide a body in those particular Hagley Woods.
It is weird, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it points to anything premeditated or anything, especially not like supernatural or anything like that. I think it's just a place to put something, and then animals got to it.
Answer me this, though, Nick.
Yeah.
Would you say that it's a weird thing that falls into a specific category?
I'm sorry, what kind of a joke are you trying to make right now?
Category? Because it's a gory murder.
Okay, that's what I thought you were going for.
Let me say it one more time. I don't think you got it.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So this next theory is one that gets bandied about a lot, and it's the connection to Van Rout, that there was a teacher at the Mundella School in Nottingham, Laura Van Rout, spelled different, that was teaching her... Yes, okay, it's weird. She was teaching all her students how to sing Deutschland über alles, the German national anthem. But in reality, she was just an eccentric German language teacher, and also, she was still alive in 1957. So let's just...
Yeah, so I don't think it's her. Yeah.
Pop a pin in that and not waste 10 minutes. Thank you.
Truth.
One thing that is interesting, though, is the fact that MI5 was still involved in this case 8 years after it happened. Which just isn't normally the case in a murder.
No.
So there's another theory, which was prompted by Donna McCormick, and it goes on to talk about more spies and another Dutchman. But this time the Dutchman isn't Van Rout.
Why are there so many Dutch people involved in this?
You can't trust them!
I mean, yeah, I've been saying it for years.
Their whole world is almost underwater.
Too many consonants in their language.
What are they hiding behind those double O's? This Dutchman was Agent Lyra, and his girlfriend was fellow agent Bella, or Agent Clara, as she was known. Real name, Clara Bella Dronkers.
Wait, her code name is basically her real name, and that bothers me a lot.
It bothers me somewhat too. I don't think it's particularly inventive.
Like, that's a bad code name. Like, you think Superman went around being like, "Hi, I'm Super." man, I work at the Daily Planet. Like, no, he came up with a different name, a totally different name.
Who's this Agent Murph that keeps on sending me horribly erotic images?
But to be fair with Superman, he also never once covered his face. So I don't think he was that worried about people finding his identity, considering all he did was put on glasses.
He changed his hair.
It's not like he has a sweet ass mullet when he's working, at the not the Daily Bugle,
The Daily Planet.
yeah, sure, that place.
Even I know that, and I know nothing about comics.
I don't know. I never really liked Superman personally.
I like the Dean.
The Dean Cain version.
You know what what's his name? You know what I'm talking about. That version. The
The
Adventures.
New Adventures of Superman.
Lois and Clark. The New Adventures of Superman.
That's the one.
That's the one.
This agent was known to be working in the area. This is Dronkers we're talking about, by the way, and Lyra. And again, there were absolutely a whole mess of spies operating in the area at the time because of the munitions production. And it's a fact that they were researching nuclear weapons at Birmingham Uni. Records show that a Johannes Dronkers was convicted and executed after admitting espionage. So that could have been Agent Lyra. His statement started, you'll love this. In April 1941, I was approached by my brother-in-law, C.J. Clever.
His last name is Clever.
Good name.
No, I think is it or Cleaver, I guess?
I like Clever.
No, let's go with Clever. Clever's funny.
I think it might be Cleaver. Who knows?
No.
Who asked me whether I would, in principle, be prepared to go to England as an agent of the German Secret Service. I replied that providing the financial endorsement was big enough, I would be prepared to do so.
What if he asked, like, hey, on principle, would you go? And the answer was, I mean, if you paid me enough. I'm like, no, that's not what I asked you. I asked you about the principle of the matter.
I think those are one and the same.
That's the opposite of doing something on principle.
I'm doing it for principle, yeah.
I mean, doing something for money is the opposite of
I feel
doing
like
it
he's
for
like,
your
I
principles.
mean, my principles can change if the money's right.
My principles are your principles.
A lot of people are like that. Let's be honest. There's a lot of people whose principles can change based on the money. I don't think that's really out of the question.
Oh, we're not saying that it's not out of the question. We are saying it's morally bankrupt.
Look, I think he deserves to ask to be compensated fairly for his time, but it's just not the answer to the question that was asked.
That's fair.
Also, it wasn't, because this was the statement he gave just before he was executed. The problem here is that Johannes Dronkers did already have a wife, whose name was Marie. But to recap, we've got a Dutch agent Lyra and a Dutch woman, agent Clarabella Dronkers, doing spy stuff in the West Midlands. Dutch agent Johannes Dronkers, caught and executed, people think could have been agent Lyra, and that his wife, with the same name, could have been agent Clara. But he already had a wife called Marie. So, this doesn't mean that he wasn't Agent Lyra, and he didn't have a fellow agent called Clarabella Dronkers who was posing as his wife. It just means that while close, it doesn't come close enough to being any sort of proof. And I also looked up how many Dronkers there are in the Netherlands right now. Anyone want to hazard a guess how many people have that last name in the Netherlands?
7.
500,000.
648.
Oh, okay. Well, I was wrong.
You were just off. I'm not sure if they're all in the Netherlands, but that's how many people have that last name, and most of those are in the Netherlands. So having two of them connected in this case is kind of tantalizing.
Here's the thing, though. Is this only a theory because the code name Bella? Like, this presupposes that the person doing this graffiti knows the identity of the woman in the tree. Like, the fact that the name is Bella has nothing to do... Like, her name isn't Bella. That's just the name someone decided to spray paint or whatever. Like, that's not... We shouldn't be connecting people to it because their name had something to do with Bella, I don't think.
The connection here is Dronkers, not Bella. Because Johannes Dronkers is the known agent that was executed, and the idea was that she was Agent Clarabella Dronkers. That's the connection. But still, it's not close enough, perhaps.
Because, like, he was executed and then this woman just never... We don't know what happened to her, and so maybe she's the woman in the tree for some reason?
Exactly.
This is weak. Weak sauce.
Yeah, I agree.
There is a whole other theory about another Clara,
Cool.
who was a singer from Stuttgart.
Ah, yes.
Yes.
Yes, and to cut this whole thing short and save 5 minutes, she was almost 6 foot tall, not 5
Yes.
like the body. Also, she died in Berlin in 1942. So I'm just going to truncate this loose end.
So, yeah, not really a theory.
But we spent so much time on it in this.
In that documentary...
It's not a theory because none of it adds up. So it's just another wrong thing. But that's fine.
It's just another fabrication.
There are many other theories, and it's very easy to get caught up in the espionage angle.
It is interesting, yeah.
It's because it's super cool. It's as I say, it's morally bankrupt, but given the situation. But there's one idea, right, that the fact that the labels are missing from her clothes, which really is a spy move and comes up a lot in other cases, some of which will be coming up soon on Death by Monsters. Hello, you're listening to Death by Monsters. Like the Isdal woman, which is a really interesting story.
Cool.
And tags were missing out of her clothes. But here in good old Blighty, that's what we call Britain sometimes, we're feeling a little bit festive. If you buy clothes secondhand, at the time just known as seconds, the labels are just removed. So that could have just been
So Spies donate a lot of clothes, it sounds like.
That's exactly the connection I'm trying to make here. That's very, very perceptive.
You can't trust
There you
charity
go.
shops.
You can trust the shop. You just can't trust the person dropping off their old clothes at the shop.
Do you know what I love, though? I love stories when you find out that someone's bought like a suitcase and they've opened up a separate piece of like a zip that they didn't see earlier. They open it up and it's just stuffed with money.
Yeah.
Oh, God, if you've got a story like that, tell me. I love that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
send that in for a home strange, deathbymonsterspodcast@gmail.com.
Did you buy a phone and you took the battery out and it was full of cocaine?
Oh God, I wish, dude.
I don't think you do.
I really don't. I would just instantly panic.
But the idea is that she could have just been a normal woman struggling like the rest of the country for the hard times that were brought to England because of World War II. There's one last theory I'm going to talk about, and that's the story of Mrs. Short and her missing daughter. This story started around 1960 when Mrs. Short started to tell people about her daughter Isabella, who went missing in 1941. She left their home in Hasbury after an argument, and if you remember at the top of the show, one of the very first pieces of graffiti that were found was one that said address was opposite the Rose and Crown, Hasbury, Hagley Wood, Lubella. Mrs. Short didn't report the incident because she thought that she'd just run away, and there was an Isabella found on the census records in the area that would have been the right age of the body. But that's it. That's all we know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's interesting. Like, if something happened to her and the person who did it, like, knew and then was, like, taunting. Like, I could see the name connection here potentially. If it was, like, a local thing, a local crime.
Yeah.
And then a person was inserting themselves into the investigation out of guilt or because that's what unsubs do, according to Criminal Minds. And spray painting stuff about Bella because they knew that was Bella or Isabella, and they put her in the tree for some reason. And I don't know. This seems like the most mundane and therefore, in a way, maybe the most likely. But I have no idea, like, I don't even know how to begin to, like, form an idea of what I think happened.
I don't know why you would leave it so many years before reporting someone missing. I just don't. That's why I don't believe that. I can't understand how you would have your daughter go missing and never really report that ever.
Yeah, I agree.
Unless there was something that happened that you're hiding or covering up.
So you think maybe there was no Isabella who went missing at all because it wasn't reported?
I just find it difficult to believe that a mother wouldn't report her missing daughter.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And I've worked in enough pubs to know that there's a lot of people who like to tell a lot of tall tales, and everyone knows about Bella in the Wych Elm. So that's a tall tale you could tell.
Yeah.
I don't want to belittle that story because if it's true, but I don't know. I mean, people are different. People are weird. Families are strange. And maybe she just didn't. But not reporting that your daughter went missing to the police ever
Yeah.
just seems so peculiar. I like espionage angle. I just think it's so interesting. But I don't know. The problem is that we will never know who put Bella down the Wych Elm. We certainly won't know who Bella was. And that's because, wouldn't you know it? Bella's body went missing.
Yep.
So it went missing from the Birmingham Medical School, which is where the body ended up. And they've got no record of the body, don't know where it went, which really is one of the key things that pushes me back into the whole espionage line of thinking.
Yeah, I mean, like, well, I guess, like, why would it just be gone?
Well, it just disappear. Yeah.
Who loses a whole body? Although on this podcast that's happened
Twice now.
Yeah.
Yes.
And yes, clerical errors happen, but to lose a whole skeleton.
I don't know, but like it's a medical school. They're doing all kinds of things on like cadavers. Like, I mean, a cadaver's a dime a dozen at a medical school, right? So like maybe it was just like not being given the attention and weight. I mean, it was just Jane Doe as far as they knew. Like,
But it was Jane Doe who came from the very famous story. It's not. It's a famous corpse.
I guess that's true.
It's weird.
But here's the thing, even if we had her body, like, what are we going to learn about that? You could do DNA testing now, but if you don't have anything to match those results to, it doesn't tell you anything. It's just random DNA in a system that doesn't match to anything.
But it might match to something, because you never know who's done like a genealogy test.
I suppose that's true.
Someone might have done 23andMe and it's a close match, and then you can find out a family that it's been near. It just makes this case probably unsolvable.
Yeah.
Which is disappointing.
Oh, for sure.
Around these parts, it's such a prolific case. Everyone knows about it. So I do kind of want it to be something fantastical, like she was a Nazi spy. That's fun in a morose kind of way.
Yeah, well, it's entertaining, it's interesting, it's intriguing.
Yeah.
But it could have just been someone who got violently murdered for some pocket change and then shoved in a tree, or someone who was in an abusive relationship who got violently murdered and stuffed into a tree. And those are probably more likely. Again, everybody's got shell shock, which isn't an excuse, but it is definitely something that makes it's PTSD. People do bizarre things, especially when it goes completely untreated, like it did with everybody.
And still does for the most part.
And still does for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, that's personally where I stand. I don't believe... I mean, the espionage, I think, is the most fun in terms of like, ooh, what if it was like espionage? To me, the most likely thing is that she was just, unfortunately, some woman who got murdered. She was put in a Wych Elm because it was a convenient place to put someone, or whoever did it was probably in some sort of panic, and put her there. I think her body got dismembered because there's animals in that forest, and that's what they do when they find food, and that's ultimately what it is at that point to those animals. And then with the graffiti particularly, I think the graffiti is 100% nothing. Like 100% nothing.
It's just people being, like doing an urban legend kind of thing.
Yeah, like this whole oh, but we need to find someone named Bella. No, you don't. Someone just could have made up the name Bella. Her name might have been Christine. It's like it means, and there's all these rabbit holes people are searching down, trying to find someone named Bella. And like that, it could be a complete red herring. It could mean nothing at all.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything. Yeah, no one knows what her name is. How would anyone know that her name was Bella?
And it's like, yeah, is it possible that like someone did know and they're doing some like, I know what you did last summer type shit? And it's like technically yes, but like I think that someone wrote this thing and then other people just took it up. Because that's what people do. When I was in Berlin, this immediately reminded me when I was in Berlin, there was these...
Was it 1945?
It was not. It was 2009. But, close. But Berlin is really, really known for its graffiti. It's kind of has been the birthplace of like modern graffiti in a lot of different ways. And so we went on this kind of street art tour, and there were all these things around that were like, where are you, Jenny? Jenny, please come back to me. Jenny, I miss you. Please come back to me, all over the city. And the guy told us that these started popping up all over the place. Like, Jenny, I'm sorry, come back to me. Like, where are you, Jenny? Like, it is someone like kind of pouring their heart out to whoever Jenny was that he lost. And so people started like writing responses like, Jenny, this man is like looking for you. It like went all over the internet. Other people were like, yo, Jenny, this dude is super weird. Like, do not go back to this guy, whoever it is. And then eventually they found this guy and he was like, oh no, it was just a social experiment. I just wanted to see what would happen if like I just started writing this everywhere.
Berlin and its damn artists.
and it's like, and so the whole thing was bullshit.
Not everything has to mean something.
And it's one of those things that it became like a citywide phenomenon. And you can still see somewheres like these things kind of written around. I'm sure somewhere people have been repeating it and stuff like that, And so it's like this 100% could have been that. Someone's like, ooh, this woman's found in the Wych Elm, some kind of like morbid person, and just been like, I'm going to write this as some weird shit and it's going to start this whole thing, and it totally has. I mean, we're still talking about it today.
The thing that it doesn't explain, though, is why no one noticed that someone went missing at the time. The reason it's such a mystery.
But who? How do you know that she was from there?
That's true, but it means that they probably weren't from the area. So there is something amiss. Even if you were if you were evacuated to Hagley, for instance, the family that you went to would still know that someone went missing.
Sure.
Who might never report it, but I can't imagine there was a lot of clerical errors and just no paperwork done at all a lot of the time. But no one missed this person, and that's why sometimes you can think, well, maybe they didn't miss them because it was a person who was trying to go unnoticed.
Yeah.
They could be a spy.
Yeah, who to the state didn't exist, or whatever. Yeah, totally. And that's why I think the spy angle is the most fun in that way. But I think the more likely scenario is that it was an incredibly tumultuous time. Something bad happened, and for whatever reason, it got popular like this. And yeah, I don't know. I this whole thing, I'm like, it can be completely explained away by the fact that it's a missing person murder. Like, those happen literally all the time, and we have way better technology today than we did then, and so I don't know, this story was very much like, okay, the espionage angle is fun, I think, but I just think it was some random person.
I wish I could say, oh, I think this is what happened, but this one's really like, I have no idea.
I have one more theory. Now you're laughing.
Just because I love, this is my favorite part.
Bigfoot.
Exactly.
Thank you for listening to this. That's it. There is no more theories.
Bigfoot could be in those woods. Why not?
It could be a giant cat. There's giant black cats out there in Britain. Watch your back.
So that is it. That is Bella and the Wych Elm. Who put it down there? Who knows?
No one will ever know.
No one will ever know. But thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for listening. You can find us on all forms of social media. Just type Death by Monsters or Death X Monsters. You'll be able to find us very easily. You can join. You can go to our website where you can find links to all of our social media on top of our Redbubble, where you can buy some merch, because you got bodies, you got to put some merch on it. If you really, really like what we do, the best thing always that you can do is recommend us to a friend. If you see a post somewhere about, hey, any good podcast that anyone's listening to, recommend us there. Just spread the word. That's the best thing you do for us, and really any podcast. Podcasts are still very much promoted through word of mouth more than anything else. And also, if you feel like you really, really like us, we have a Patreon now, and we have some fun goals, most of which are based around us coming together, and when Matthew is here or when we're over with him in England, that we get to travel and do some fun, cool things like going to the Winchester Mystery House, maybe going up and trying to find Bigfoot in some woods, maybe going to this Wych Elm. It's not there anymore, right?
No, it got cut down.
Yeah, it's too bad.
I think it got burnt out.
Yeah, we can go spray paint Why Was Bella Put in the Wych Elm somewhere in his town, because we don't like this town.
And we'll document it for you and share that with you. We'll make new episodes based on this content that we're able to investigate because of your patronage.
I don't think we should film ourselves doing any crimes, but most of that I agree with.
That will do camera free.
But nonetheless, your support on Patreon is what allows us to do way more fun stuff, which just means more fun content for you. So consider that if you have a couple shekels lying around that you don't mind throwing at our faces. And I think that is it. Am I missing anything in terms of... Oh, if you have any Home Strange stories, by the way, every other week we do a Home Strange episode where we take a story from one of our listeners that they have sent into our email, which is deathbymonsterspodcast@gmail.com, and we talk about it there. So if you have any crazy thing that's happened, you found a treasure map, you found a cool chair at an antique shop.
Did you make friends with a man who turned out to wear a cape that was a bat? Let us know.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Did a dolphin talk to you through its mind? Tell us about it.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I mean, if those things happen, please tell us, because that is some fantastical shit.
Do you always, every time you shake someone's hand, also see a premonition of their death?
Please don't ever touch my hand.
Please don't shake my hand. I want it to be a surprise. Yeah.
And all that's left to say is thank you so much for listening, and goodbye.
And bye.
Bye-bye.